Good to go.
Welcome to Senate Education, Thursday, March 23rd, 1:47. Page 461 is on its way, or it's here. It has arrived. Page 461 is the House bill that has been sent to us. It's their miscellaneous education bill.
Yes.
And Ms. St. James is here to take us through it.
Good afternoon, Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel. For H 461, do you all have the bill is passed by the House in front of you?
Yes.
We don't have line numbers, but we will. We'll refer to section numbers. Hopefully, it won't get confusing. So the first chunk of the bill is several sections, but under the reader assistance heading there, it's all related to the shared school district data management system. And the general effect of sections 1, 2, I believe 3 taken together is to end the requirement that schools participate in the shared school district financial data management system. And this is all session law. So you'll see that the first section there, it began with a section from the big bill of 2018 for the special session. Section E500.1, which created this language that required school districts to utilize the same school finance and financial data management system. Okay, I'm looking at the crossed out language there. I don't have line numbers there, so it's subsection A. You'll see there's a date, and then it says all Vermont supervisory unions, supervisory districts, school districts, and independent technical centers shall utilize the same school financial and financial data management system, and that the agency shall select the system. So that language is all struck, and it's not replaced with anything. So the requirement that school districts, supervisory unions, and independent technical centers use the same data management system is no longer, this bill proposes to take that off the table.
Yeah,
Any reasons why?
That's a policy question. This is, I think you're more used to hearing the term e-finance, which is the system itself that was being developed in order to be used by all school districts, all supervisory unions, and shared. So it was like a central repository. And there are some schools that are using it now, and they were in the process of rolling in more. But you'll see the dates have been pushed out and pushed out and pushed out for the dates that all school districts are required to participate in the system. And so why the decision has been made now to stop that requirement is a policy decision.
I understand, but did you hear anything that might point us, from what the request was before, because Colin Flynn can't be here today because I guess he's got a bunch of things on the floor.
I think this all came, I believe, from a request from the agency. So I would encourage you to hear from them. But I think the general consensus was there was some implementation problems.
Okay.
Or challenges, I should say.
Recall these from the past as well.
You see this started in 2018. We're here in 2023.
Yeah. That's helpful.
Yep.
Any questions on this section right now? Okay.
So the next section 2, we're still on page 1 here, is you'll see there was language. This is I'm looking at the bottom of page 1, where it says it's section 2 of this bill, but it's amending section 16 from 2021. There was a pause on the implementation of the shared school district data management system. You'll see that this language we're now calling this a suspension of the implementation, no longer a pause. If you move on to page 2, you'll see that the implementation, I'm looking at the second line on page 2, the implementation of the shared school district data management system shall be permanently suspended, provided that AOE and its contractor for the implementation of the system shall continue to support existing users, because there are school districts that are using it, and any new adopters, so that the system exists, so theoretically, people could decide now that they want to use it, or school districts could decide now that they want to use it, as of the date of enactment of this act of the system, within the confines of the existing contract that they have for this system. And then there was language that required a school district or supervisory union to have to actually opt in or opt out of using the system in consultation with AOE, and that language is now struck.
So it looks like they're still funding the contractor.
I don't know anything about funding.
Yes, AOE and
And then there was a reporting requirement on this process of implementation and development of the shared school district data management system, and section 3 of this of H 461 proposes to repeal that reporting requirement because the implementation has been permanently suspended.
Great.
Okay. Second reader assistance heading is section 4 of the bill at the very bottom of page 2, the National Guard Tuition Benefit Program. This bill proposes an amendment all the way over on page 3 at the very bottom for allowing a new kind of eligibility for the Vermont Tuition Guard Benefit Program. That's adding a subdivision A4 for courses at non-Vermont approved post-secondary education institutions approved for federal Title IV funding, which is federal student loan money, where the degree program is not available in Vermont and the benefit shall be the in-state tuition rate charged by UVM. So this already, you can see subdivision 1 is for courses at any Vermont State College or UVM, the benefit is the in-state tuition rate. For courses at any eligible Vermont private post-secondary institution, the benefits the in-state tuition rate charged by UVM. For courses at eligible institution offering non-degree certificate training, et cetera. And so now this is a 4th category of post-secondary education outside of Vermont.
Do you know what this program's about? Like, is it a full tuition reimbursement?
If you go up to subsection A there, program creation, it's titled to the following tuition benefit for up to full-time attendance.
Okay.
And then the
and just remember, everything, all that's already current law.
yes, it's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
current law. So now you're adding about, you're allowing folks to get funds under this tuition benefit program and use them for courses at non-Vermont approved post-secondary education schools.
So it is a tuition reimbursement.
Right, in the benefit shall be, the last sentence, the in-state tuition rate charged by UVM.
So, can you give us an example? Like this could be a class at Dartmouth over the border.
Right, so
Yeah.
but it has to be something that's not offered in Vermont.
Oh, okay, so you might go
That's
there.
not available in, so if Dartmouth has a great whatever,
Yeah,
and
Not
no one in Vermont offers it,
got it.
this would
Makes sense.
allow you to take that course there.
No, the rep, Lisa Hugo,
Hango?
thanks. Do you know if that was was this her bill? We might want to have her, and she's involved with military caucus.
I
and
don't
she's a good witness.
remember off the top of my head.
Okay. You write to Representative Hanko and see if she wants to weigh in on this.
I believe you're right.
Okay. Thank you.
So moving on to home study on page 4.
Oh, it's the guardsman thing. It's just,
Well,
poke and fun at it.
Oh,
the brigade has units all over doing,
yeah.
and this is, I think it's a recruiting
Oh, it is.
retention issue.
Oh, really? Okay.
So,
Just giving you grief.
no, it's a, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think that's what it is.
Okay.
I take care of that.
Yeah, it seems like a great idea.
Page 4, section 5, with the reader assistance heading of the home study program. This is an amendment to section 166B in Title 16, which is the home study program statute. This is it. This is the home study law.
Homeschooling.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay, just wanna make sure we're up, yeah.
And so this section 5 makes changes to that statute. So the big changes, we'll just walk through it, but I'm gonna try and keep this relatively high level.
Great. We have Rita coming in later, who oversees homeschooling for the state.
Okay, and this was a proposal by the agency.
Okay,
So the first change here is, let's see. So currently, in order to start the home study program and send the state notice that that's how your child will be meeting the attendance requirements, the mandatory school attendance requirements, you have to enroll the child, send enrollment notice to the agency by July 1. This change strikes that July 1 requirement and just says a parent or legal guardian shall send the secretary annual notice of intent to enroll the parents or legal guardian's child in a home study program at least 10 days prior to commencing home study. A new notice was required in the old language or current language every year for after March 1st for re-enrollment. And so again, this new language is just proposing 10 days prior to commencing home study annually. There's some kind of small changes adding to what is included in the enrollment notice on page 4 there, adding the date of birth to the information to be submitted to the agency, email addresses, and then some clarification on parents or guardians. It's those with legal custody who are legally authorized to make educational decisions for the student. Subdivision 3 under current law requires that a child enrolled during the preceding year. An enrollment notice includes an assessment of progress made, and this bill proposes to strike that language and instead require parents or guardians to submit an attestation that the academic progress of each child enrolled in a home study program will be assessed at the end of each school year, and that the parent or guardian will maintain the record of such assessments. And then permitted means of assessment shall include a standardized assessment, which may be administered by the local school district or a testing service, a review of the student's progress by an individual who holds a current Vermont teacher certificate, a parent or guardian report and portfolio to include a summary of what the student learned during the school year and at least 4 samples of student work, grades from an online academy or school, or evidence of passing of the GED. Most of this is in current law, but in a different section of current law, and I'm just trying to find that struck language to point you to that. If you look at page 8, subsection D, progress assessment, you'll see this is all current law that's struck. And this was this is current law for the progress. So the language we just read through is what's required now to be submitted to the agency regarding assessment. And on page 8 is what's current law. So current law is each home study program shall assess annually the progress of its students. Progress shall be assessed in each subject area of the minimum course of study by one or more of the following methods. So in current law, there is one of the options is a report by a licensed teacher on a form designed by the secretary. And there are, in the proposed amendments, you'll see that there is a option of review of the student's progress by an individual who holds a current teacher's certificate. So it's not exactly the same, but it's I would say that's the analogy, that's the similar to what's in current law, but it's not exactly the same. A report under current law, a report prepared by the student's parents or instructor or a teacher, together with a portfolio of the student's work that includes work samples to demonstrate progress in each subject area in the minimum course of study. That's subdivision 2 on page 8. That's current law. What's proposed here is to strike that, and then one of the options is that a parent or guardian submits a report and a portfolio to include a summary of what the student learned during the school year and at least 4 samples of student work. So again, different, but if that portfolio and parent report is that general category is still the same. On page 8, subdivision 3, completing the results of a standardized achievement test is an option for assessment. And that is also a option on page 5 in the proposed new language. Current law requires that standardized achievement test to be approved by the secretary. And this new language does not require that. Let's see. And then the new language adds D and E, which is grades from an online academy or school or evidence of passing of the GED. That's very confusing because it's not found in the same place. So is that clear to everyone? But there's some general things that are similar, but there's also differences between current law and what's being proposed here.
I say, Jake, if she doesn't mind, Lindsay, may I ask you a quick question? So overall, were you concerned, and we can always wait on, that there were some holes around what was happening in homeschooling, or?
Yeah, Lindsay Hedges, Agency of Education. I think the idea around this is that the process currently is written is pretty burdensome and paperwork heavy and doesn't produce a whole lot of positive outcomes.
Okay.
And it's kind of seen as some basically low hanging fruit to free up capacity and align us with what other New England states, how other New England states operate their programs.
Very helpful, thank you.
So does this have something to do with funding for homeschool?
I don't think there's a funding.
Okay. Because most people I've talked to that do homeschooling
Yeah.
did it the way they do it because they didn't want the government involvement. Because it.
Yeah, I think there's a range of
Yeah.
reasons, absolutely, I think
So
you're
I was
right.
thinking
Yeah.
if it, this is kind of directed at nature,
Mhm.
if it, if it's some ways or a carrot.
Well, I see. Well, we're gonna hear from Rita Dunlap, who oversees, she's the homeschool advocate,
Oh, okay.
so she'll be in. Right, please, Senator Elmore, please come on in. We'll pause in just a minute.
I don't know off the top of my head how much time you booked for this.
Yeah,
How much time did you book for this? Because
We-
I can make it quick.
can you make it quick?
Yeah.
I don't wanna hold up Senator Elmore.
Yep.
Please.
So the big change to home study, and we can go back
Yeah.
more through granular, is current law allows for the secretary, if the secretary has concerns about the education that's going to be provided in the home study program, to file a concern, and there is a provision for a hearing process. And this amendment takes that hearing process out and does not replace it with anything. That's the big change. And then the last section is page 13, section 6, Vermont Ethnic and Social Equity Standards Advisory Working Group. The Act 1 working group, this is pushing out some of the dates for their work. Currently, their report to the State Board of Education is due, part of their work is due to the State Board of Education on December 31st, 2022, under current law, and they have asked to have that changed out to June 30th, 2023. Their report to, or the State Board of Education is currently required to consider those recommendations and make any changes that they see fit to the education quality standards by last December 2022. This pushes it out to December 31st, 2023. And that's it.
So maybe this will be our final vehicle for any, the last bill to go. So anything that you are feeling, any changes or anything you want added, the one done this year, this is the spot to do it, but we'll have more testimony. Senator Palmer, we apologize for,
Go Priscilla.
please join us.
Thank you,
We,
Mr. Chair.
There are some senators we would just let sit there for a while, but not you.
I'm glad I'm in the other group.
We have a list. I'll pull it out.
Okay.
More. Thanks for joining us, please.
Thank you, and I appreciate the time this afternoon. For the record, Senator Palmore, representing the Rutland District, and we're here to talk about Senate Bill 134. I think 4 of the members of the committee have signed on to the bill, so I assume they've at least read it. It's not a particularly long bill, but I do want to provide a little bit of background to it. So largely as a result of the pushback from my Senate district in which Castleton University resides, I decided to introduce this bill. I've heard literally from hundreds of professors and staff, students, parents, alumni, and community members opposing the decision by the State College Systems Administration and the Chancellor to remove books from the physical library at Castleton and the resulting loss of jobs of both staff and librarians. But I've heard similar sentiments from those living elsewhere in Vermont. The other institutions were similarly affected by these same decisions, and in addition to the downgrading of athletic programs at both Northern Vermont University and Vermont Technical College, the athletic decision, to be fair, did not immediately impact Castleton University. I think it's still true for most people that essential to a college or university is a physical library. Besides providing students with a basic tool for learning, many in the community surrounding these institutions also make use of the library. It's hard to imagine a more fundamental element in a college or university setting than a physical library. But regardless of the way people feel about the decision itself, the manner and process by which the decision was made, in my view, was poorly done and sparked very strong negative reactions from both inside and outside the institutions. Little, if any, input was taken from faculty, staff, parents, alumni, or the community. The administration said at the time that the students preferred a digital library, and that was the basis for their decision. However, student input was limited to an online survey, which was given during exam week last year. One might expect that students were a little more focused on passing their exams than on completing the survey. So first of all, 500 of the approximately 5,000 students across the 3 soon-to-be merged institutions responded to that online survey. That's 10%, 500 of the 5,000. Those students indicated, quote, "We want information as quickly as possible and digital is better." That quote came from President Greenwald in testimony before the Senate Institutions Committee. But when I specifically asked the president about those results from only, again, 10% of the students, and asked whether there was a question on the survey which indicated that it might mean getting rid of books in the library, he said that question was never asked. So what's followed from that announcement by the administration have been student protests both on campus and here at the State House a few weeks ago. Faculty and staff from the 3 Vermont State colleges announced a no confidence vote in the Board of Trustees over the library and sports decisions. And criticism has also come from the Lieutenant Governor, the Castleton Select Board, and over 400 alumni. The Executive Board of the Vermont School Library Association said it was appalled by the decision to eliminate the print collections. It also became clear to me that despite a revision, in quotes, of the original decision, the administration and Chancellor and Board of Trustees appear to be, to me again, still not listening well enough to all the voices. The system plans, as I understand the revision, on keeping roughly 3,000 books from roughly the 300,000 that they have. So again, that's roughly a 30 or a 10% figure of the approximately 300,000 items. And even though I realized by statutory creation back in, I believe it was 1961, in Title 16, that this system operates independently from the General Assembly, I still hope by introducing this that we can encourage further discussion on the issue. So I have some other handouts. Thanks to Charlotte Gerstein, who's a librarian at Castleton University, and other people have sent me the same stuff. I have a handout which explains some of the additional issues involved, issues like digital access being unstable. If the internet goes crazy, you don't have anything anymore. How the equity and accessibility aspects may not jive with what's been said, namely folks with certain disabilities, it's hard for them to read on the screen. And that's just part of the problem, I think. There's an interlibrary loan agreement, which apparently has not been reinstituted or won't be. And again, how the outside community is impacted. There was an editorial today in the Rutland Herald in Rutland from Jonathan Spiro, who's the former president of Castleton. So I just want to pass those out to you and for your edification. I have them listed here, so let's pass that down to Senator Campion. And I know Senator Buick's not here, but perhaps you can get those to her. They even have one for Hayden. So I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any. And I know our time is limited.
Committee, please, Senator.
Yeah, just, so I just want to start off by saying, I appreciate and I thank you for getting this in. And since we're live and on the record, I did just want to say I did intend to sign on to this, but since I was out physically for a week, I wasn't able to. One question, actually two questions I have, and this might be something for Beth St. James as well, but do you foresee any sort of constitutional issue when it comes to the state telling the college what they can or can't do?
I think it's a fair question. And by the way, I thank you for your support. 16 of the 30 senators have been either signed on to the bill or, in Senator Hashim's case, expressed interest in supporting it. It is a complicated question. I admit that. Again, by statute in 1961, we basically said to the state college system, you make your own decisions. The only connection or intersection, if you will, that we have with them is funding. And so they have a $10 million appropriation on a line item in the capital bill. And I don't know what the big bill will have for an appropriation. So that this bill, again, I think there's two ways to do this. I want the administration and the chancellor's office to know that the great majority of people I interact with don't support this decision. So they can either find another way to cut, because we did ask them to cut $5 million for 5 years, a couple of years ago, or potentially we could make an appropriation because the amount of savings that's been listed here is $500,000. That's been in print, that if they close the libraries or move them to a digital thing and take care of the sports programs, that they'll be saving $500,000 of that $5 million.
Not a lot.
There's a potential appropriation that might be in the big bill to put back the 500 and maybe that and keep everything going here, and that takes care of this. So it's a fair question.
And this is just a technical question. On the second page, it says on the first line, the corporation. I take it that's referring to the Vermont State Colleges. Is that just for consistency with the rest of the statute or chapter?
Indeed, Title 16, when it was statutorily created, it is a corporation.
Thanks. I was just curious.
It was organized that way.
Thanks for all your work.
Sure.
that you're doing on this.
Senator Weeks.
So I do have one question, Senator Collmore. So, like, as you said, the university system is reacting to the $5 million per year decrease for 5 years. In all this conversation, and we've heard that they don't want to take a hit into the library. I think we fully understand why that is. But are you hearing good conversation about from alumni or faculty or students on what the $5 million reductions could be? Is that conversation really active, or are we kind of reactionary only to the library issue alone?
I would be surprised if the students were ever involved in making a
I mean, just
decision.
recommendations.
Yeah.
I'm just, because I'm not, in all the articles, and I'm just not hearing that. And I think that we might be missing an opportunity for the faculty and students and alumni to really kind of chime in to the chancellor's office to say, this, maybe not this, but maybe this, instead of kind of a destructive conversation of just not this.
Yeah, again, I don't have any specific data to share, but anecdotally, I have heard that both the administration and the chancellor's office have increased spending in terms of people they hired since the merging is taking place. And the faculty and staff have gone the other way at some of the institutions. So that might be another place where there could be some reductions being occurred.
So is one of the, if you will, fixes for this in your mind would be for the appropriations committee to restore or to put $500,000 toward this in order to keep it going?
I think that's a
That's-
possible solution. I haven't addressed that to the chair of the appropriations
Right,
committee, so it might be coming out of left field for her, but I think that's a way to solve it, sure. I mean, there's only two ways you can do it, right? When you run
Yeah.
a business, you cut expenses or you increase revenue, and
Yeah.
those are the two things you do, so.
And I think it is, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there have been decisions at state colleges and University of Vermont for years that I personally have not always agreed with. It's just tough from where I'm sitting when I'm not running the business, they're running the business, and I get it, it's complicated, there are a lot of different decisions being made, but clearly there's a lot of support behind doing something on this. And what comes next, who knows? But I think what Senator Weeks was saying, does it make sense for them to, I think Catherine Lavasser is going to follow you.
Yeah.
To have community meetings, to understand, priorities of faculty, staff, and students.
Yep.
Before making cuts.
And I'd certainly be willing to be part of any discussion that they have in terms of, keeping jobs for the staff and librarians that are
Yep.
there at the three institutions and keeping our physical libraries going.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, we all share the goal that we want these places to be there.
Yeah.
We don't want to say in 10 years, gosh, I wish, whatever is now a resort town or, whatever. You see Southern Vermont College, they just some resort company just bought it.
I hope you do have time to read the handles. I think they're
Yeah,
informative.
thank you.
We got some more information.
Any other questions for Senator Collmore?
Okay,
Thank you, Senator.
thank you.
Ms. Lavasser, I believe, is on the screen. There she is. So thanks for joining us. We were wondering if you would respond a little bit to the bill. And I believe you're responding, correct me if I'm wrong, on behalf of the administration, but I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair Campion. For the record, Catherine Lavasser, Director of External and Governmental Affairs for the Vermont State Colleges System. And I want to first thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I hear it from you every day, and I know that you, like me, care very deeply about the Vermont State Colleges, our students, our faculty, and our staff, as well as our rural host communities. And the Vermont State Colleges, they are personal to every student, every faculty member, every administrator. I grew up next door to Linden State College. I have a brother that was able to access higher education because of Vermont Technical College. And I think every person that works at or is adjacent to the colleges has those kinds of stories. Who we are is we are the resource that provides essential access to higher education and continuing education in the rural communities in Vermont. And when you look at where Vermonters, especially low and middle income Vermonters, are going to school, it's with the Vermont State Colleges. About 50% of the students at the Johnson campus and 40% at Linden are Pell eligible. So that means that they are among the neediest students when it comes to financial aid and pursuing higher education. Students are overwhelmingly coming from our rural communities, and we 100% support the mandate that we received from the state, both that we will transform and that we will keep those campuses open. Keeping the campuses open is something that we advocated for during the select committee process. And I think sometimes people forget the terrible financial shape that we were in 2020, when closing physical campuses was one of the options that was on the table. That's not the case now. Our commitment to keeping our physical footprint in our communities is significant, but it takes a significant amount of money and a lot of changes to our business model to make that happen. We're committed to making those changes because we have no choice and because it's the right thing to do. Either we change or we close the doors. And that was our reality 3 years ago. Since those hard times, we have changed leadership. We've reduced the size of the chancellor's office, and we've executed administrative consolidations across the system. We've engaged in really deep and plentiful conversations with faculty, staff, and students. We've continued dialogue with our legislators, with local elected officials and alumni, and we're thinking about our future, the dreams and visions for our schools and our campuses, all within the context of what we can afford. We've worked really hard and hand in hand with the House and Senate, particularly leadership, and all of these conversations have led us to where we are on this 5-year path to sustainability and moving us from that state college system that was always financially struggling and always fighting debt to a right size. And that's a size that fits our students' needs, our communities, and that is more affordable and is what Vermont can afford. The move now to partially digitize our libraries along with the student-centered changes to the existing library spaces is one small component of this years-long effort. And I want to emphasize again that no libraries are closing. Like I've said, we've been given a mandate to transform from the state and from our Board of Trustees, and we've been working for the last 3 years to do just that. I want to talk for just a minute about our engagement with our community because that is really important. We've been focused on partnering, and that has been with our students, our faculty, our staff, our alumni, and our host communities to transform the system. This is a key aspect of our effort, and it also includes everybody in this room. We had a student advisory committee for the last 1.5 years that's ongoing that has provided invaluable input on the transformation work. We had over 130 faculty members engaged on the program unification as we worked to bring the 3 different major and minor programs together across the institution. And we had faculty, staff, and administrators on the core transformation teams, as well as the sub-teams that generated ideas as we engaged in the design process to launch the new university. We've had regular town halls on our campuses, as well as opportunities for public input, virtual engagement, written public comment along the way. And we're doing all of this work because it's necessary and it's the right thing to do. We know that we have to build a sustainable system with input from our community. And we also know that in order to be sustainable, leadership will sometimes have to make decisions that people don't like. And there will be more change to come. People will likely be disappointed again, but we're going to learn from our mistakes on this issue, and we are committed to doing better in the future. On this bill, we've talked to many senators and representatives that are rightly frustrated with the rollout of the changes to the library system. And I know that many of you have heard from our state colleges families. We did too. Many are frustrated with us and our choices, and we own and apologize that we didn't do better with the communication on this. I don't think this bill is the solution that gets us to a sustainable place or allows us to transform. Many people that have signed on to this acknowledge that they don't want to micromanage the hard choices that we have to make. And we've heard from members of leadership that they're frustrated that we are not doing more. They expect us to right-size the system and to go deeper if we are going to survive. We can be better leaders, but that doesn't always mean that we will be likable or that our decisions will be liked, and that's okay. We signed up for this. We signed up to be in this very hard place that brings this $25 million of cuts to our school. But we also signed up for the really exciting opportunity that it is to modernize our institutions, build accessibility, and make some of those opportunities available, like the tuition cut that we announced in the fall that brings our tuition under $10,000 a year. We aren't able to make the kind of necessary change that we need to make if this bill were to go into law. It has to be structural, not one-time savings. That's what we signed up for. And it's going to take a lot of flexibility and creativity to get us into a more sustainable place. We know that we have to achieve that modernization and sustainability. And we also know that this decision, the president's decision to change our library structure, is one small part of it. This decision was based on long conversations about the future of libraries and books, how our students use those resources that are available, and how students use the spaces now. The new president thought it was the right move in the right moment. And we understand that there's more for us to do in terms of communication and engagement as we make decisions in the future. We spent a lot of time and energy on communications around transformation, and we see now that we have to keep up that level of communication if we're going to continue on this transformation path successfully. I want to thank you for the opportunity to weigh in on the bill today. Your care and your commitment to the Vermont State Colleges is very clear, and we thank you for that and for the ongoing support that you've given the system over the couple of years. And we don't take any of that lightly. We understand we're going to be watched closely on our choices, on our communication, and most importantly, our actions to transform and meet your expectations as well as our own expectations and the expectations of our communities moving forward.
Questions from Ms. Lab? Yes, Senator Williams.
So the bill is reality, it's here. And you must have had like a strategic plan for getting to that $25 million goal. Where did you have a decision point matrix that you follow? The stumbling block right now is the library. Do you have any other cuts you can make that are in that decision cycle?
So we have been tasked with making $5 million in structural savings over 5 years. We achieved $5 million in FY23. We are getting ready to launch our FY24 budget. We're on the same cycle as the state. And so we are moving towards that second $5 million, of which the library decision is a part of. There are very few things that achieve $500,000 in savings with one decision. And this was a significant decision in many ways because it also, not only did it involve a reduction on one side, it also involves a reinvestment to change the library spaces so that they better meet the needs of our students and to invest in the digital resources that students need if less physical resources are available. So there are many decision points and strategic planning processes ongoing concurrently. There's a whole 10-year facilities strategic planning process that is underway right now. A huge component of our structural challenge has to do with our facilities and having too much space, too much deferred maintenance, et cetera. That's a huge component about the 15 million that remains after FY24. For example, but we can't get to that part of the process until that strategic planning process is completed.
You said you cut administrative staff in the chancellor's office. Have you actually cut the amount of money that's going out for wages and benefits, or just numbers?
So there is a fundamental restructuring happening on the administrative side of the Vermont State Colleges. And let me couch this by saying we are accredited as 4 institutions right now. On July 1, we will be accredited as 2. We have to meet our accreditation standards until June 30th of 2023. And so we have an administrative structure for each of the 3 colleges that are unifying. That's moving to a single administrative structure with the new university. Simultaneously, we are doing administrative consolidations between CCV and Vermont State University and the Chancellor's Office. And that's pulling IT, finance, HR, and I'm missing one, but it's pulling some of those shared functions into a single unit. And that's,
I asked that you actually cut the costs that's associated with the administration rather than just numbers.
So I'm trying to answer your question, Senator, and I'm trying to explain that there is an administrative consolidation underway at Vermont State University. There is simultaneously one underway across the entire system because we are changing our administrative model. So I can't, I don't have in front of me number A and number B that I can tell you yes or no. What I can say is that we are changing that structure to be better and more efficient. And that is something that touches the entire system. As part of that process, we have downsized the Chancellor's Office. And so the actual Chancellor's Office starting July 1 will consist of the central system Chancellor's staff, the shared services division, which is separate from the Chancellor's Office and is providing some of those same resources to CCV as it's providing to VTSU is going to be housed as a separate budget item in a separate entity. And so there are all of these changes happening to put us on a more sustainable foot and to make sure that there are administrative consolidations happening at the same time that there are other consolidations happening.
So is the cost of your administration public information? Is that publicly available?
It is. All of our financials are publicly available.
So I wonder if one of the things that sort of lesson learned out of at least the rollout is, it seems to me like more communication needs to happen. And I think specifically with the delegations where the institutions themselves, exist, and I would just, perhaps you're offering these kinds of things, but to follow up on Senator Williams' questions, I think it would be very helpful for myself and perhaps for others to understand, a little bit more of what's the guiding document, what sort of things can people expect, what, even to be able to answer to constituents, what will these institutions look like in 5 years? What is that sort of goal? And then to have an opportunity to dig down into some detail, like Senator Williams is asking, with those interested, but particularly local legislators who are going to be getting calls from their constituents, so they have that information. I would just recommend as much of that as you possibly, those opportunities, particularly for local legislators, I think, the more you can do, the better. Senator Hashim.
Thank you. So I first want to say, I can see, the rock and the hard place that you're in, and I respect that. I mean, you're hearing from the state that, you need to save money, but then you're also hearing, that you can't do it this way or you can't do it that way. So I understand that it's difficult, but, from where I'm sitting, I haven't seen or heard from a single student or professor or faculty or a staff member that, that closing or partially closing these libraries is something that they support. And so, when I hear that, I do feel compelled to act in some sort of way to support that. My question, I had a few questions. Senator Williams got to the first one, but my second question regarding the partial digitization, can you share with me or share with the committee how much it will cost to go to whatever vendor you're going to be using for the digitization? And can you also share with us who the vendor is?
I'd like to get back to you on that because I'm not a libraries expert. And so I'd like to consult with our academic team and get back to you on that question.
Okay, that would be great data to have if you're able to get that. And with the town halls that you said that have been happening, can you share what the feedback has been from students regarding this?
Yeah, it's been quite passionate. I will say there's a lot of misinformation that's been spread and perpetuated in communities. And I want to be clear, we are not closing libraries and we are not shuttering library spaces. And so that was a big component of feedback early on. It was, how can you take this study space away from campus? And that is not happening. And so there's been a lot of passion there. There's been a lot of passion around physical books. The refined plan reflects a plan to keep several thousand volumes per campus. And just to put that in a little bit of context, less than 4% of our library collection was accessed in the 2018-2019 school year. So that was pre-COVID-19 and pre shift to a lot more online resources and online learning. And about 2% of our collection was accessed in 21-22. So post-campus, post-return to return to quote unquote normal. And about 9.5% of our entire collection was accessed at any point in the last 5 years. 58% of our collection has never been accessed since it was purchased, and 30% of our library budget is dedicated to physical resources. And so that is the managing and circulation of the 300,000 books that we have in the libraries. And so when you look at those numbers and when you look at the where student use is, you see a tremendous opportunity there. And I think one of the things that's been lost is the investment that's happening with this decision as well. With this, we are able to invest in a 24/7, 365 chat service with professional librarians. So if you're somebody like me that, worked during college and then tried to write my papers between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m., the library is not usually open at that time, and the library staff is generally not available to assist with research. With a chat service, you have access to that assistance wherever you are, and however you are accessing the information. There's also a commitment to reinvest in the library spaces and to make them more student-centered and more focused on the ways that our students are actually using those spaces for individual work, group study, etc. And so we've been doing our best to correct the record and to communicate better and communicate as accurately as possible. But I think, as you know, it is really hard to correct misinformation once an idea is out there.
Senator,
Thank you.
Hughes.
Yeah, thank you, Sure. Thank you for the testimony so far. I think this is helpful. So I did appreciate the numbers that you gave us about checkout rates and such. I think that's relevant. And I'll tell you, I'll give you a little bit of my background that's relevant to this question of digital libraries. So I finished up 3 masters and several years into a PhD, and the two of those masters and the PhD work were 100% digital. So this is a new environment. Okay, but I do have to say that this whole issue has migrated into something that's rather emotional, and I think that there's a little data missing from the discussion. And since it's been 2 months since the university system rolled out its decision, I do agree with Chairman Campion that the communication effort from the university system needs to be enhanced. And something that might be helpful is that we all know that each course has a syllabus. Each syllabus has reading lists and assignment lists and what have you. A simple exercise is going into that list and saying how much of this is electronic and how much of this is hard copy would be just as significant as the checkout rate. And living in Rutland County from the Castleton perspective, we know that there's all kinds of feedback about that the 4% checkout rate doesn't account for going to the stacks and pulling a particular reference book, then putting it back into the stacks. It's just not recorded. So yeah, the number is maybe not 4%, but it's somewhere in that realm. I just am a little frustrated because from Rutland County we're receiving a flood of constituent requests and inquiries. And it's that communication effort to kind of sell your position. It's really missing right now. We're hearing hundreds of feedbacks from constituents, but we're not hearing enough counter position from the university system. This is helpful, and this will get out. But I do think that the whole sell about the digital environment is not strong enough. You're not convincing anybody yet, and that's where I highly recommend that you focus for the immediate near term, because you're losing the opinion war right now. And I'll leave it at that, just a statement.
And I would just add to that, if this is about saving the institutions, that has to be also front and center with a lot of constituents out there. And I agree that it's, and I understand also it's a careful line because, you know, you're also at the same time trying to attract students that want to be there and have those experiences and want to be at a vibrant, financially healthy institution. Yes, Senator Weeks.
And just one more recommendation if I could. I think that you could, it's possible for the university system to take this whole experience and benefit from it in that I think that given your $5 million per year target, I think that the alumni and the faculty and the students might be able to help you out there, give you ideas and recommendations on how to make this a more, to participate, to be involved in this decision process rather than the approach which has been taken with the libraries. And I just offer that as, you could completely turn this around 180 degrees if it's handled properly with this communication effort. And again, with that, we'll stop. But thank you for your testimony.
Senator Williams.
So just one point, because Senator Weeks hit most of my points online, but the physical library, the books, and then I asked President Grewal here one of the times he testified before the committee that the people that are going to lose their jobs, were they going to be offered another job within the system? He said yes, they would, if they were qualified. Does that happen? Because I'm hearing it hasn't.
So we are working with our impacted staff, and we have a number of positions open across the system, both at Vermont State University and CCV. And so there is a process that they undergo that's, I believe it's outlined by our collective bargaining agreements. And I know that our HR team is working with folks as well.
I mean, within, somebody moving to a different campus from the Pulteney area or Fairhaven, if they work at Castle University, it's difficult to find a place to live that they can afford, number one. The other thing is the infrastructure in the broadband, or a lot of the areas in Rutland County don't support digital libraries. So I'd be interested to see the implementation plan and kind of match it up with the broadband expansion to find out what the university plans to do, so that the president said that they're going to have a lot of students that are going to be telecommuting. They're going to be doing online courses. If they can't get access to broadband, then they're not going to be able to do that. And in the end, that'll probably end up having an adverse effect on the university and students. Thank you very much for your testimony. You did a good job fielding all the questions.
So Ms. Lavasser, we are going to continue on this topic next week. We have some, I believe, some faculty, staff coming in to weigh in a little bit, and we may have you back in as well. But if there are any other developments that are a priority from your end, please let us know. And I do believe Senator Hashim had a couple of questions for you. If you wouldn't mind starting that process by responding by email to everyone on the committee, that would be great. And then if Senator Hashim or someone else wants to have you in to further those conversations, we'll do so. Senator Williams.
Just one last thing, the strategic plan I spoke of, you said you had, is that publicly available?
Yes, there are a number of documents that outline the transformation plan. I can send you a couple of them.
Okay. I'm talking about the students. That involvement with the faculty and staff and the students, if they know what's going on, it'd be a little more palatable to them when they know change is coming, rather than being the recipient of it the day it shows up.
So we do, we have a transformation update that comes from the Chancellor monthly, and one that comes from Vermont State University's president every other week. And that is where we outline both the happenings and what to expect. I think one of the challenges, and I offer this as an explanation and not as an excuse in this particular situation, when you are dealing with decisions that impact people's employment, there are certain procedures that you must follow, both on the HR side, in accordance with our collective bargaining agreements, and because it's the right thing to do, to notify impacted individuals first. And so There were some challenges to the rollout timeline due to some of those very necessary and very important conversations with impacted employees. We are looking at what our options are and what we can do strategically, should any decision be made under the same circumstances in the future. But I do want to share that we try very hard to make sure that our impacted employees are the first to know of a decision.
Thank you.
I think we'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, and we'll look forward to your email. Committee, take 5 minutes, and then we'll have